We have a huge new report from Ross Dellinger about the future of the college football playoff and revenue distribution. And with the proposal being that the Big Ten and the SEC could make $300 million more per year than the Big 12 and the ACC, might the Big 12 and the ACC actually say no to this proposal? Welcome into the channel. I am John Kurtz. Here on this channel, we talk college football, college basketball, and conference realignment, all from a Big 12 slant. Please consider subscribing if you have not. Even if you are not a Big 12 fan, you're just a college sports fan, college football fan. We get people from all corners of the college football world on the live shows on Wednesdays and Sundays. So make sure that you are there for those. They are a blast. Tons of people in there. Lots of smack talk. It is good. Good stuff. So make sure you subscribe. Click the bell so you know when it is that I'm going live. And please like the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Should the Big 12 and the ACC go along with a plan that is going to have them $300 million in the hole every single year to the Big 10 and the SEC? All right, Ross Dellinger packed a ton into this. In fact, I'm doing two separate videos. You've got another one coming tomorrow on some of the ramifications of what all was in this. But the big headline is just what the revenue distribution is going to be. We now have a different priority here. A lot of people have been focused on the structure of the playoff. What sounds like has taken center stage is how the money will be distributed. And this, unfortunately, does not look as good as what had been previously reported by Pete Thamel, where he kind of floated out what a revenue distribution plan could look like. So here's what we have. Ross Dellinger says, for some, a troubling certainty exists. Any deal reached will drive a further financial wedge among the four major conferences. The college football playoff is barreling toward a new format and a revenue model that skews toward the new Power Two of college athletics, creating a more formal delineation between two groups, the SEC and Big Ten, the ACC and Big 12. Now, none of this is surprising, right? We've already basically seen this. We knew it was coming. It's just this now gives us some concrete numbers that I'll get to later on that really are pretty sobering. And when you just see it laid out like this and you understand the reality is, like, we are here now discussing what this playoff is going to look like in 2 years. And like, that's really where the delineation is going to start to take off and the line in the sand will be drawn. It's a sobering thought for anybody who's not a Big Ten or an SEC fan. Well, the Power Two separated themselves long ago through increased revenue streams and recent expansion. A new playoff model is expected to draw a more permanent line. Using an uneven new revenue distribution, a tangible separation is forming between college football's halves and those that were once veritable equals in the space. Those with knowledge of the proposal spoke to Yahoo Sports under condition of anonymity. Quote, "You have two leagues asserting their power," described one college athletics administrator. You thought the asserting of power was the two automatic buys that were being lobbied for by the Big Ten and the SEC, but it actually is much more the money, the revenue distribution, the cut that they are expecting to get and trying to get in this proposal about the playoff. So let's jump into the money. Dellinger says any decision on a playoff format is taking a backseat to a more significant piece, the money. A revenue distribution model has surfaced that would distribute annually to the SEC and Big Ten multiple millions in additional revenue than their two power league counterparts. Well, an expected move, the figures shocked those who have seen the proposal. And I got to be honest, this even kind of shocked me because it was so much different than what Pete Thamel had floated out there just like a week or two ago. It was in the last couple weeks that we saw that. And I remember coming on a live show and saying, hey, this actually doesn't seem as terrible as I thought it might be. It was going to be anywhere between like a $10 to $20 million gap per team in what the payout was going to be. 10 to 15 million like per team from the Big 12, for instance, versus per team from the SEC. It says in the past structure, the five major conferences mostly split evenly, 80% of the college football playoffs, $460 million in revenue. In a proposal socialized with administrators this week, the Big Ten and SEC would combine to earn about 58% of the college football playoffs base distribution. So 58% of this entire deal that we're talking about being over $1 billion per year would go to the Big Ten and the SEC. He points out it's a figure that will certainly grow in participation distribution as their individual schools earn more revenue for qualifying and advancing through the playoffs. So yeah, they've gamed the system here. You get extra money in addition to this base money that we're talking about for getting to the playoff and then for winning games in the playoff. Like the further you go, the more money you pick up. And that is where you can that line in the sand will get even stronger, right? 58% to 31% that is expected to be distributed to the ACC and Big 12. A 27% difference there, 58% to the Big Ten and SEC, 31% to the Big 12 and ACC. And that will grow even more because they'll get more teams in. They're likely to win more games. Bada bing, bada boom. You see how all of this is working. The remaining amount, which is roughly 10%, would be distributed to Notre Dame and the 64 group of 5 teams. So no word specifically on what Notre Dame gets, which to me is still a pretty intriguing aspect of this, because if it is significantly less, does that continue to kind of nudge Notre Dame toward a conference? Would that be enough to get them to decide they need to do that? I'm not sure, but it is something to ponder here. The difference in distribution between the two sets of conferences, the SEC Big 10 and the ACC Big 12, will likely exceed $300 million per year. The Power 2 will earn around a combined $760 million versus around $440 million for the ACC and Big 12. Roughly $115 million is slotted for the group of 5. No school's revenue will decrease, as the college football playoff is expected to distribute about $1.3 billion annually in a new TV contract with ESPN, or 3 times the amount of its past deal in the 4-team version. The participation distribution is only expected to account for $100 million of the overall distribution. Teams will earn between, so here's what we talked about a second ago, teams will earn between $3 to $5 million each for participating and advancing in the playoff. So that's where the extra money would start to accrue, right? You get an extra 2-3 teams in. That's already an extra, $9 to $15 million if it's 3 more teams in there every single year. And then how many games do they win? You're starting to stack up that money even more. Considering the distribution percentages, SEC teams will earn as much as $23 million annually. Big 10, $21 million, ACC around $13.7 million, and Big 12 around $12.3 million. And, let me just go ahead and correct myself. Actually, that is fairly in line with what Pete Thamel had said the other day, but it's just more sobering when you see it laid out by conference and that it's $300 million per conference. And you're looking at it here, it's about $10 million per school, $10 million difference per school for, say, Texas Tech in the Big 12 versus Florida in the SEC. You're talking about $23 million every single year, no matter if you make the playoff or not, versus $12.3 million. Group of 5 teams are expected to earn a figure just south of $2 million. As far as the format goes, take a second to just breathe all that in money-wise, everybody, right? I guess take a deep breath, exhale. As far as the playoff format goes, that was generating most of the discussion recently before we got to this, but a playoff format is further from being settled. A variety of 14-team formats continue to circulate across the industry, including the one that made news last week. It grants 3 automatic qualifiers to the SEC and Big 10, 2 to the ACC and Big 12, and 1 to the highest-ranked group of 5, with 3 at-large spots. So that's your 3-3, 2-2, 1-3 model. You can keep track of all these numbers, but there is, as well, according to Dellinger, a 2-2, 1-1-1-7 model, which would give 2 automatic berths to the SEC and Big 10, 1 to the ACC and Big 12, 1 to the highest-ranked group of 5, 7 at-large spots. And when I say 1 each to the ACC and Big 12 there, and then 1 to the group of 5. There's also a 5+9 model that mirrors the current 5+7 12-team format, but features an additional 2 at-large spots. Presumably, that model would grant automatic berths to the 5 highest-ranked conference champions. So, yeah, think of that as basically what we're going to have for the upcoming 2 years, plus 2 more at-large spots. The concept of the Big Ten and SEC holding exclusive rights over the two first-round buys has received enough pushback that many expect it to be tabled. The money is the more important matter. So, basically, the idea there being like, hey, maybe the Big Ten and SEC got a little too greedy with that. They received so much pushback from even national media members in the college football world. I'm sure there was tons of pushback internally on that. And they must have heard everybody like, hey, you're trying to do a little bit too much there, asking a little bit too much. And they're like, fine, we'll just take this huge extra cut of the revenue and we'll go from there. We'll worry about that most because that is what matters most. Revenue is more significant than ever. The major conferences and their members are gearing up for a future athlete compensation model. The concept, whether employment, revenue sharing, or collective bargaining, necessitates extra cash flow to be put aside for players. And that is, to me, one of the key pieces of this. I talked about it just earlier this week. Hey, we're seeing the thing happening with Dartmouth where they're like unionizing. And pretty soon you are going to have to be paying players directly out of your own pocket if you're the schools. You're going to need as much money as possible. And having the extra money from the playoff, having their extra money from the TV deal, we're talking about the SEC and Big Ten having like an extra $50 to $70 million per year on everybody else. Like it's that's going to be a lot. I guess maybe I could lower it like 40 to 60, 40 to 70, something like that. That will help a ton when you're paying players and competing for players. So it leads to this, and I know I've waited a long time to get to really the title of the video here, but I found this to be one of the most fascinating parts of the entire Dellinger piece. The format aside, the money split alone is causing anxiety in both the ACC and Big 12, with some of the administrators asking a vexing question, quote, would the Power 2 really leave if we say no? Would you call the bluff of the Big 10 and the SEC? That is basically the question that I'm asking you here. I still don't think that I would, but I understand why people would say at this point, who cares? Tell them to screw off. If you got to go do your own thing and they break off and do their own thing, then fine. We're heading there anyway. Just go for a clean break and we'll start it in 2 years. Like, that's basically the argument there. Or maybe you call their bluff and they're still really fearful of an antitrust lawsuit and they don't quite have the guts to go break off and do it right now. And it's been a little bit more talk than anything else. And they would actually come back and not make that revenue gap so wide. The problem is the article would go on to say, like, they need a decision basically in the next like week and a half, like a little over a week, end of next week. So you've got a very short period of time to decide on one of the most important things that has ever had to be decided in college athletics, and your future is on the line. So this is pretty wild right now, everything that's happening. So continue to stay locked into the channel and just continue to stay ready, stay ready for anything and everything that could happen with the future of the sport that we all know and love. So please do like the video. Let me know in the comments, what do you think the Big 12 and ACC should do? Should they call the bluff here, or do they just agree to it and take what they can get? Make sure you subscribe. Check out the live shows on Wednesdays and Sundays. I appreciate all of you guys being here. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon.